everyone, and welcome back. We are diving into a book today that I know a bunch of you have been asking about. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and I think it's especially perfect for anyone who's maybe just starting their financial journey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just getting their first big person job.
Yeah, definitely. And he really pushes back on some of those old school money mindsets, like the whole pinching pennies approach.
Yeah?
Which can feel kind of outdated and out of touch, especially for younger generations.
Yeah, I'm so over those lectures about lattes.
Right.
Let me enjoy my occasional latte and just tell me how to actually manage my money effectively.
Exactly. And that's what I appreciate about Sethi's approach. He gets it. He understands that traditional budgeting advice often falls flat because it doesn't resonate with how younger people think about money.
So, okay, let's jump into it then. One of the first things that stood out to me was how Sethi debunks this myth that we need to track every single penny to be financially successful.
Yeah, he calls those the latte lectures, this idea that, if you just give up your daily coffee, you'll magically become wealthy.
Right. I'm pretty sure my daily coffee habit is not the main thing holding me back from financial freedom.
Exactly. It's about focusing on the big wins instead of getting bogged down in those small, insignificant expenses.
Okay, so big wins. I like where this is going. What are some examples of these big wins that Sethi talks about?
So think about it this way. Instead of stressing over a $5 latte, what if you could negotiate a raise that puts thousands of dollars more in your pocket each year?
Okay, yeah, that's a much bigger win than giving up my beloved latte.
Right. Or what if you could find ways to automate your savings so you're effortlessly putting money aside each month without even thinking about it? Those are the types of changes that can make a significant impact on your finances over the long term.
It's about playing the long game, not just obsessing over those small day-to-day expenses.
Exactly. And, Sethi also doesn't shy away from addressing those common excuses we all have for not managing our money effectively.
Oh, we've all been there.
Oh, yeah. Like those fears about losing money in the market or simply not knowing where to find that extra cash to save each month.
Yeah, those are definitely real hurdles that we need to address. What does Sethi say about those fears?
He tackles them head on. For example, he reminds us that thanks to inflation, the money we have sitting in a traditional savings account is actually losing value every single day.
It's true. It's like our money is slowly shrinking if we just leave it sitting there.
Exactly. So even if investing feels a little risky at first, it's always better than doing nothing and watching your savings slowly erode.
It's like that old saying, the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all.
Exactly. And as for that excuse about not being able to find extra cash to save, well, Sethi introduces this really simple but powerful concept he calls simple math.
Simple math. Okay, I think I can handle that.
It's really about understanding the power of small, consistent actions over time. He breaks it down like this. Saving just $1 each day adds up to $30 per month. Now, that might not sound like a lot at first.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like much on its own.
Right. But if you invest that money, even in a simple, low-cost index fund, it can grow significantly over time, especially when you factor in the magic of compound interest.
So it's not just about finding extra money. It's about putting that money to work for you.
Precisely. And this leads to another crucial point that Sethi emphasizes: personal responsibility.
Okay, tell me more about what he means by that.
He's basically saying that we need to take ownership of our own financial well-being.
It's about being proactive instead of just letting things happen to us.
Exactly. And, one area where many people feel powerless is credit cards. They often get demonized in the world of personal finance, but Sethi calls them convenient enemies.
Convenient enemies. That's an interesting way to put it. What do you think he means by that?
It sounds like he's acknowledging that credit cards can be useful tools if used correctly, but they can also be dangerous if we let them control us.
It's about being strategic, right?
Yeah.
Like using them to our advantage instead of letting them use us.
You got it. He's all about teaching us how to beat the credit card companies at their own game. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is through negotiation.
Negotiating with credit card companies.
That sounds a little intimidating, to be honest.
It might seem that way, but Sethi breaks it down in a way that makes it feel totally doable. He even shares a story about how he got a $59 refund from his credit card company with just one phone call.
Wait, really? Just by asking?
Yes, it's those real-life examples that make his advice so relatable and actionable.
I like that. Okay, so if you had to boil down this whole credit card section to one golden rule, what would it be?
Without a doubt, it's this. Pay your credit card balance in full every single month.
Okay, so simple, but so crucial.
Absolutely. It's the most effective way to avoid those killer interest charges and keep your credit score healthy. It's about staying one step ahead of those credit card companies. So speaking of credit scores, Sethi doesn't just tell us they're important. He walks us through how to actually check our credit reports for free each year.
He does. And he even offers this interesting, somewhat counterintuitive strategy for boosting your credit score, requesting credit limit increases.
Wait, really? I always thought asking for a higher credit limit was a bad thing.
It can be if you're not careful, but here's the thing. A big factor in your credit score is your credit utilization rate. Think of it like this. Your credit limit is like a bucket, and your spending is the water you put in it. The less water in the bucket, the better your credit score looks to lenders.
So by increasing your credit limit, you're essentially making the bucket bigger, which makes your spending look smaller in comparison.
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, he also warns against falling for those tempting 0% balance transfer offers that credit card companies love to throw our way.
Oh yeah, those offers always sound so good in theory. What's the catch?
The catch is that those offers are designed to lure you into a cycle of debt, especially if you're not laser focused on paying off that balance before the promotional rate expires and those sky-high interest rates kick in.
It's like they're banking on us slipping up and racking up a balance we can't handle.
Exactly. So knowledge is power when it comes to credit cards. And for those who might already be facing credit card debt, Sethi doesn't leave you hanging. He lays out a really clear 5-step plan, complete with negotiation scripts you can use when talking to those credit card companies.
It's like he's giving you the exact words to say, which can be so helpful, especially when dealing with something as stressful as debt.
He does. And before we move on to the really exciting stuff, building a spending plan that doesn't make you want to pull your hair out, let's touch briefly on bank accounts. Because those pesky fees can really eat into our hard-earned cash if we're not careful.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I once paid like $15 for using an out-of-network ATM. Never again.
Oh my gosh, I've totally been there. And you know what, Seth, I would agree with you on that one. He's a huge advocate for online banks, mainly because they tend to offer higher interest rates on savings accounts and charge lower fees compared to those traditional brick-and-mortar banks.
That's about being strategic about where you keep your money and making sure your money is working as hard for you as possible.
Exactly. Now, are you ready to ditch that spreadsheet of doom and explore Sethi's approach to creating a spending plan that actually works?
Lead the way. I'm all ears. Okay, so we're saying goodbye to those restrictive budgets and hello to this conscious spending plan that Sethi talks about.
Yeah, it's a total mindset shift.
So walk me through what that actually looks like, practically speaking.
Sure. So traditional budgeting often feels like a constant exercise in deprivation, right? Like you're always saying no to yourself. But Sethi's approach is all about making intentional choices about your spending.
It's about being mindful, not miserable.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing what truly matters to you without feeling like you're constantly restricting yourself or missing out.
So it's not about being cheap. It's about being what he calls frugal. Help me understand the difference there.
You got it. Okay, so think of it this way. Being cheap is all about cutting costs indiscriminately, often at the expense of your own happiness.
Right, like cutting coupons for things you don't even need just because they're on sale.
Exactly. Whereas frugality is about aligning your spending with your values.
I like that, aligning your spending with your values.
It's about being intentional, right? So let's say someone really values traveling, for example.
Yeah.
A frugal approach might involve finding ways to travel more affordably, like being flexible with your travel dates or using travel rewards programs, not necessarily giving up on travel altogether.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Enjoying those things that are important to you, but also making smart choices with your money so you can actually afford them.
You got it. And Sethi has this great example in the book about a woman named Lisa who loves designer shoes, right? But she lives in a tiny apartment and cooks most of her meals at home.
So she's chosen to prioritize her love for shoes while making conscious trade-offs in other areas of her life.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot, that balance between enjoying your money today and making sure it's working hard for your future self as well.
Okay, so how do we actually create this conscious spending plan? Walk me through the steps.
Totally. So Sethi's approach really boils down to a few key steps. The first step is to identify what he calls your big wins. And these are the areas where small changes to your spending can make a significant impact on your overall budget.
So we're not talking about giving up your daily coffee here. We're talking about those bigger expenses that can really move the needle.
Exactly. Things like eating out, entertainment subscriptions, or even those sneaky recurring subscriptions that tend to fly under the radar.
Oh my gosh, yes, the subscriptions. I am so guilty of signing up for a free trial and then completely forgetting about it until I see that charge on my credit card statement.
You and me both. They get us every time.
Yeah.
But seriously, Sethi suggests taking a hard look at all your recurring subscriptions and honestly asking yourself, am I really using this?
Am I actually getting my money's worth?
Exactly. Could you maybe be enjoying those streaming services a little less often and opting for pay-as-you-go options instead? Or maybe downgrading to a cheaper plan? Small tweaks like that can add up to significant savings over time.
It's about being more mindful of those little expenses that often slip through the cracks but can really add up if we're not careful.
You got it. And for those who are more visual learners, Sethi also introduces the classic envelope system.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. But I'll admit I've always been a little intimidated by it. Like it sounds very dot organized.
It can be as organized or as flexible as you want it to be, but basically it's all about creating a tangible system for managing your spending.
So it's like a physical reminder of your budget.
Exactly. So you start by deciding how much you want to spend each month in different categories, like groceries, entertainment, whatever makes sense for you. And then you literally put that amount of cash in a labeled envelope.
Ah, so once the cash in that envelope is gone, you're done spending in that category for the month. No more guilt-inducing credit card swipes. I can see how that would be really effective, especially for someone who's more of a visual person.
Exactly. It's a great way to make your spending more tangible and to help you stick to your budget.
Okay, so we've covered optimizing our spending, but what about the other side of the coin? Increasing our income. Because sometimes even the most well-crafted budget can only get us so far if our income isn't where we need it to be.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because Sethi doesn't just focus on cutting costs. He's equally passionate about helping us unlock our earning potential.
Because sometimes we need to think bigger than just trimming our expenses, right? Sometimes we need to find ways to bring in more money.
Exactly. And you know what? One of his biggest pieces of advice in this realm is super simple but often overlooked. Negotiate your salary.
Ah, the dreaded salary negotiation is one of those things that can feel so intimidating, especially when you're early in your career or you don't necessarily see yourself as a negotiator.
Totally understandable. But Sethi really breaks it down into manageable steps and takes the fear factor out of the whole negotiation process.
So it's not about being pushy or aggressive.
Not at all. He emphasizes that negotiation is not about being demanding or confrontational, but rather about approaching the conversation with confidence and a collaborative spirit. It's about demonstrating your value and finding a solution that benefits both you and your employer.
It's about advocating for yourself. And I love that he provides actual scripts for these conversations.
He does, because having those words at your fingertips can be such a game changer when you're feeling nervous or unsure of yourself.
For sure. It's like having a cheat sheet for one of the most important conversations of your career.
Right. And you know what? He doesn't just stop at negotiating your current salary. He also really encourages readers to constantly be on the lookout for other opportunities to increase their income, whether that's through freelance work, a side hustle, or even launching their own businesses.
It's about diversifying your income streams and creating multiple avenues for financial growth, right?
Exactly. Not only does it put more money in your pocket, but it also gives you more control over your financial future.
Okay, so speaking of tricky conversations, let's talk about how to navigate money matters with those closest to us. Family and partners.
Oof, yeah, that can be tough. I'm happy to dive into that. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think for a lot of us, talking about money with our families can be especially challenging.
It can be a really sensitive subject, for sure.
Yeah, like I once tried to have a conversation with my parents about their retirement plans, and it did not go well. It kind of turned into this whole big thing.
It's so easy for those conversations to go sideways, especially when emotions are involved. What do you think made that conversation so challenging?
I think part of it is just that money is such a taboo topic in our society. You know, we're not really taught how to talk about it openly and honestly, especially with our families.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you add in generational differences in how we view money, things can get really complicated really quickly.
That makes a lot of sense, and Sethi actually addresses that head-on in the book. He talks about how our upbringing and our family's relationship with money can have a huge impact on our own financial beliefs and habits, even if we don't realize it.
It's like we inherit these unspoken money scripts from our families.
Exactly, and sometimes we don't even realize we're following these outdated scripts until we start to question them. So how can we start to rewrite those scripts and have more productive conversations about money with our families? While Sethi emphasizes the importance of open and honest communication, He encourages us to approach these conversations with empathy and understanding, recognizing that everyone has their own unique relationship with money.
It's about meeting people where they are,
Yeah.
right? Not judging them for their past financial decisions or trying to force them to adopt our own money mindset.
Exactly. And when it comes to parents specifically, Sethi offers some really practical advice for navigating those sometimes delicate conversations, especially if your parents might be struggling financially or haven't necessarily been the best financial role models themselves.
Because that can be a really tough dynamic to navigate.
Yeah.
You want to be supportive of your parents, but you also need to set healthy boundaries for your own financial well-being.
Exactly. He really encourages us to approach those conversations with compassion, but also with a healthy dose of realism. It's about being willing to help within reason, but also recognizing that we can't fix our parents' financial situations for them.
It's about empowering them to make their own choices
Yeah.
while also protecting our own financial well-being.
You got it. Now, let's shift gears for a second and talk about saving, because just like Sethi challenges those traditional budgeting methods, he applies that same philosophy to saving as well.
Okay, so it's not just about mindlessly socking away money into a generic savings account.
Yeah.
What's Sethi's take on saving?
Exactly. He's not a fan of that approach. Instead, he advocates for what he calls goal-based saving. Have you heard of this?
I haven't. It sounds way more motivating than just watching numbers slowly grow in a generic savings account. Tell me more.
Okay, so with goal-based saving, you start by identifying your specific financial goals. This could be anything like a down payment on a house, a dream vacation, or even that fancy espresso machine you've been eyeing.
I like where this is going. So you're saying instead of just telling ourselves we should be saving more, we're actually giving ourselves a clear target and a reason behind it.
You got it. It's about attaching a purpose to your saving, which makes the whole process so much more tangible and motivating.
I can already picture myself sipping a cappuccino from my dream espresso machine, thanks to the power of goal-based saving. But speaking of big financial goals, let's talk about home ownership for a sec. It's something a lot of us dream about, that whole white picket fence thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it can also feel incredibly daunting, especially in this economy.
Absolutely. And you know what? Sethi doesn't sugarcoat it. He challenges that traditional notion that buying a home is always the best financial decision.
So he's not all about pushing that whole, American dream homeownership narrative.
Not at all. He wants us to be informed and realistic, encouraging us to look at the whole picture and really understand the true costs of homeownership. And I'm not just talking about the down payment here.
Because it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of browsing Zillow, fantasizing about granite countertops and stainless steel appliances.
Right, totally.
But then we forget about those less glamorous expenses like property taxes, insurance, and all the inevitable maintenance costs that come with owning a home.
Yeah, this can add up so quickly. He really wants us to think about those hidden costs and to ask ourselves those tough questions like, can we comfortably afford these additional expenses on top of our mortgage payment? Does our lifestyle really align with homeownership? Or would we be better off renting for now and keeping our options open?
It's about making a conscious choice that aligns with our individual circumstances, our financial goals, and our lifestyle.
Exactly. And if someone decides that homeownership is the right path for them, Sethi does a great job of walking us through each step of the process, from getting pre-approved for a mortgage to negotiating with sellers and even finding a real estate agent who's actually on our side.
That's super helpful. It can feel really overwhelming trying to navigate all of that on your own.
For sure. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive. We talked about conscious spending, credit card optimization, becoming our own investment gurus, how to master those tricky money conversations, and even navigating those big life decisions like homeownership. But there's one more piece of Sethi's philosophy that I wanted to touch on before we wrap things up: the importance of giving back.
Oh, you know what? That really stuck with me too. And it's not something you typically see emphasized in a personal finance book.
I know, right? It's refreshing. But it really speaks to Sethi's belief that true wealth goes beyond just accumulating money. It's about using those resources to make a positive impact in the world.
So it's not just about getting rich, it's about being rich in generosity as well.
Exactly. It's about aligning our spending with our values, and that includes supporting causes that we're passionate about.
I love that. So whether it's donating to charities we care about, volunteering our time and talents, or even starting our own social enterprises, Sethi wants us to find ways to integrate giving back into our lives and our financial plans.
And it doesn't have to be some grand gesture either. Even small acts of kindness and generosity can make a world of difference.
So making it a part of our lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? Not just something we do once a year when we're feeling generous.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have something to offer and finding ways to use our resources, both our financial resources and our time and talents, to create a ripple effect of generosity in the world.
So well said. Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into I Will Teach You to Be Rich, it's clear that this book is about so much more than just personal finance. It's about designing a life, a rich life, that's aligned with what truly matters to us.
Yes, 100%.
It's about taking control of our finances, yes, but ultimately it's about using money as a tool to create a life of purpose, of passion, and of abundance in all areas of our lives.
So well said. And I love that you used the word abundance, because that's really what Sethi is all about, helping us shift our mindset from scarcity to abundance. It's about recognizing that we have more power than we realize to create the life we want.
It's inspiring, to say the least. But as Sethi reminds us, the book is just the starting point. Now it's up to us to take action and put these principles into practice.
Yes, 100%. He gives us the tools, but we have to be willing to use them.
Exactly. So as a final thought, as a challenge to everyone listening, what's one thing you're going to commit to doing differently after listening to this deep dive?
Ooh, I love that. What's that one actionable step you're going to take today to start creating that richer life for yourself?
It could be something small, like setting up a budget that actually works for you, or finally checking your credit score. Or maybe it's something bigger, like having that long overdue conversation with your partner about money, or finally taking the leap to invest in that side hustle you've been dreaming about.
It doesn't matter how big or small it is, just take that first step.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. There's a ton of support out there, from online communities to financial advisors to podcasts like ours. We're all in this together, and we're here to cheer you on every step of the way.
Absolutely. We can't wait to hear about all the amazing things you accomplish as you start implementing these principles and creating a life of true abundance.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep conquering those financial goals.